Veteran substance users, what's your craziest substance story? A few months ago I was a freshman in my spring term of college. I'd stopped studying nearly as much as I had been, and finals week was ahead of us. That morning, I'd woken up with all my clothes on after blacking out pretty badly at the frat house, for our senior send-off where everyone gets extremely wasted. My friend and I had a rough morning, and were trying to put our heads back together, had gotten some food, and we were in no shape to study, but still needed to. I had an economics final 2 days from then, and hadn't learned much the whole year. In the past, I've never been the one to suggest doing Addy as a study substance. I've done it in minimal doses such as 10 milligrams once or twice. For some reason, my teammate for the club team I was playing for had given me a bottle of Addy XR, filled with 30 capsules. For those who don't know, XR stands for extended release, which means it can last for 12 to 16 hours. To get our brains ready to study, we thought we might just take a pill, so that we could be more collected and prepared to study. That is not what ended up happening. For some reason, we thought it would be a good idea to snort it. So we sat there in our dorm, bills rolled up with crushed up Addy XR all over the table. We forgot to measure the dosing, and with 30 milligrams in each capsule, the dosage was no joke. The maximum recognized dose was 50 milligrams for anyone. Well, we didn't pay attention to that, and just kept doing it. I would do one more, and then he would, and then I would, and then he would. Days later, we ended up realizing we had done around 200 milligrams each, through our noses and, where the substance immediately entered our bloodstream and tweaked us the F out. I think it may have rewired my brain. The rest of the day was a blur. We talked for 2 more hours, tried to study, I walked around campus, walked and walked. I walked 65,000 steps without meaning to. I could not stop noticing things, talking to people. Getting my energy out in some form. I did not run out of energy. Every time I took a seat, my hands were fidgeting, and my knees were jumping, nothing like I'd ever experienced before. It felt like I'd lost all ability to feel tiredness, and it went from being a cool feeling to a dreading feeling, around 6 hours later. I just couldn't get tired, and it was 12 a.m. now. I'd spent some time with my girlfriend at the time, and talked my roommates and her ears off for a few hours. I couldn't even sit down and focus on homework and studying for some reason. After I left my girlfriend's dorm, I walked around, and this is when I actually started to realize that it would not wear off. I was like, yeah, it's 12, I'll just walk around for an hour to get my energy out and then get to bed. Did not happen. It was around 1 a.m. by the time I got back to my dorm, and luckily I had some of my friends on my floor awake in our lounge, so I had some company while I was in such a weird headspace. I ended up having a great time just recounting the year with them. Some people just continued to pass through the lounge, and even if I didn't know them very well, I just talked their ears off, and by the time everyone went to bed, it was around 3 a.m. I still had zero intentions of going to bed, I just don't think my brain would have turned off even if I tried, which I didn't even attempt to. Things got even more fun after that. I introduced alcohol, because at that point I was by myself. I went into my room, grabbed some snacks and the remainder of my handle of New Amsterdam vodka. I ended up taking 5 consecutive shots, within about 20 minutes, hoping that it would make me a little tired. It didn't. I ended up finding out about the term dirty rolling after that. Dirty rolling is a term that describes the combination of Addy and alcohol, a strange euphoric feeling that I was enjoying so much, despite having been up for around 18 hours now. I'd wondered why the few hours after that was so fun. I also decided to go into my room and pull out some grass, maybe that would make me wind down. I rolled up and smoked that beach. The only thing that did was make me faded as a mother effer, slow, but not tired in the slightest. It also gave me the munchies, and I cooked one of my roommate's frozen pizzas and ordered a pizza for myself. After eating, now absolutely baked, drunk, and on so much Addy, I decided to leave again and take the 4.5-mile walk to our nearby football stadium. It was honestly an exhilarating time. I had AirPods in and enjoyed every second of music I listened to, while the sun was rising as I walked through the empty campus, around 5:30 I believe. The few people I saw I would assume were very confused by me wandering the campus with just a t-shirt and shorts. I thought it was so cool to be awake at such a time, and ended up enjoying a seat on the grass in the dog park right outside the stadium, peacefully watching the rest of the sunrise and enjoying my music. At this time, the early risers of the town had gotten up to take their dogs for a walk, and a few were confused by my position. I ended up having a great conversation with an elderly man about his 73 years spent in this town, and some life stories. The craziest one was a strange tale he told of his father taking the man to a casino, where he had ended up losing all of his money, not to the gambling, but to his father taking all of his money. He'd said he'd been drunk for the first time in decades after a few mixed drinks, and woke up without his money and never saw his father again. It was an intriguing conversation. Afterwards I walked back, still not the slightest bit tired, and walked into the dining hall for some breakfast around 8 a.m. My body clock had been completely fried, and for some reason it felt like the evening, but everyone else was just getting up to get breakfast before heading to the library to study. It was a strange feeling, walking in. I ended up going back to my room and laying around for a few hours, still not remotely tired, going on 24 hours of being awake now. The Addy had truly flooded my bloodstream, and prevented me from sleeping, an artificial insomnia. I ate some lunch with my roommate afterwards, and was extremely irritable, and got into a pretty bad argument with him, so at this point my brain was starting to fail. Around 6 p.m., I finally crashed. I was out in a few seconds, and ended up waking up in 3 hours, and then finally got back into my normal swing of things, feeling a little bit back to normal, and stayed up that night until around 2 a.m., just trying my best to study and be normal. I'd split off from my friend who I'd done it with in the afternoon of the day before, but he'd had a similar experience, just with more attempted studying. We both felt like we'd been going crazy, the substance was no joke. I somehow passed my final though.